Hello, boys and girls. This is Mr. Tim. How you going? You know what? We're working on stories, okay? So this is a bit selfish of me, actually, because you know what? I really like to read great stories because I have to do a lot of them. Sometimes I feel like going to sleep if I read the same kind of boring story over and over again. So what I thought I'd do, guys, in this little video is I just want to give you guys just fixing up this audio. Here we go. I just want to go over how do we write a story and how can we plan a story? Because, there's nothing I like more than sitting out in the sun on my veranda with a cup of tea or a coffee and reading your amazing stories. So that's what I want to do in this little bonus video because I think there's a lot of confusion around how to write a story. And I don't think we teach it well enough in the classroom because your amazing teachers probably don't have time to do it. I remember when I didn't feel like I had enough time to do it. But I want you to think of writing a story like this. Imagine you are like a producer, like a movie producer, right? When you go to the movies and you watch a movie, what do you want to be? Do you want to sit there and like, is it finished yet? Can we go home? No. You want to be entertained, right? That is what you need to do. When you write a story, you need to entertain the reader. So there's some things that we need to remember to do. So I'm going to just go through what I call the recipe or a recipe for a great story. That's the first thing. And then I'm going to talk to you about the story graph, which is a planning tool to help you guys plan your ideas. And then I'm going to show you an example of a story plan that I did. And then hopefully you'll feel more confident about writing your story. And I know many of you are working on stories this week, so maybe you've already done it, I don't know, but maybe you could do it again after you've watched the video, if it's helpful. Guys, it's not about mastery. You're not going to master it, okay? So I know that sounds like teachers shouldn't say things like that, but it's an ongoing process, okay? You're going to get better and better at it as you go. You can master things like maths. You can master arithmetic, subtraction, long division, algebra. You can kind of master that, but writing is something that is a lifelong goal. And even the best authors in the world will tell you that half of what they write is junk. They screw it up, throw it in the bin. Nah, it's rubbish, right? So don't be hard on yourselves. Okay, I'm going to go off the screen while I do this, and I'm just going to you guys can get a notebook and you can write this out if you want to. I'm going to bring up my whiteboard here, and hopefully you can see it. I really don't like the new notebook on Zoom. I really don't like it at all. Anyway, we'll persevere. So let's talk about, the first thing we're going to talk about is what I call a recipe for a great story. So you can, on a piece of paper, you can just write down in the middle, just draw a bubble in the middle, right? Sensational stories. And I'm going to go through the key ingredients you need for a sensational story. Don't worry if you don't know all of these yet, but I believe that if you write this down, it will stay with you and it's something that you can think about. We need a plan, kids. If we don't have a plan, we don't know which direction to go, do we? So every story should begin with what we call a sizzling start. So we want to try to avoid once upon a time, one sunny day, many years ago. Okay? Now, sizzling starts, there's different kinds of sizzling starts. We can begin with dialogue, somebody talking. We could begin with action. We could begin with some sort of a description. We could describe the setting, and we could describe characters, or the character, the main character. We could begin with sound, onomatopoeia, right? You can even begin with what we call a rhetorical question. Now, as I said, guys, you're not going to master all of these. I think the sample that I'm going to show you, the one that I did, I started with dialogue, which is somebody speaking. All of these are much better than One Sunny Day many years ago, a long time ago, right? They're quite boring. That's the first ingredient in our recipe. The next one is, guys, we need characters, obviously. Not only that, guys, you need to describe the character, all right? So what do they look like? What's their personality? Are they kind? Are they gentle? Are they selfish? Are they evil? Are they wicked? Do they have long hair? Are they wearing glasses? Does someone have a tooth missing? Are they skinny? Are they muscular? Do they walk with a limp? Do they have an eye patch? All of these important traits help to paint the picture for the reader. So, appearance, personality, and I like to say unique traits. So, a trait is like part of their character. So, maybe they're really strong. Maybe they're super smart and they can solve the most complex problems really, really quickly. Maybe they're super brave, like a grandfather, and he's really brave and he'll happily go into the forest and look for you if you're lost. He's super, super brave, right? So you've got to paint the picture of the characters. That's very important. The next ingredient, guys, we need to use a lot of descriptive language. What do we mean by that? Well, that's a big category, but we mean things like adjectives and adverbs. Okay, we'll talk more about this, of course. Now, what we do also need is we want vivid, what I call vivid vocab. So we want to avoid boring words, guys. Words like good and bad and big and small and thing and stuff. And we also want to avoid words like, did I say got, did, went, those kinds of words. Very, very boring. So we want to try to ban the boring words. Another key ingredient in our recipe is we want to include some imagery. All right. So imagery is when we show instead of tell. So we do this by using something called shampoo. So shampoo, not the kind of shampoo that you use to wash your hair with, although I'm sure you are washing your hair like your parents tell you to. I'm going to put a link in the email to a video that I did on shampoo. But shampoo is about figurative language. So simile, hyperbole, alliteration, metaphor, personification, onomatopoeia. This is what we call imagery. So even though you're young learners, you can still start to play with this language and bring your writing to life. Right, we also need paragraphs. Biggest problem I see is kids writing in one big chunk. Do you eat your dinner in one big gulp, or do you eat it one spoon at a time? Of course you eat it one spoon at a time, otherwise you'll get indigestion. Same for reading, right? If you spit it all out in one go, the reader can't digest it, and it's hard to read. So every time you start a new idea, you start a new paragraph. So that's another key ingredient. Another key ingredient is we need some tension in the story. I'm going to show you in a minute the story graph, which will show you that we build up and we use a technique called pebble, small tension, rock, getting bigger, and then boulder. So we're not just going from the beginning, from the first paragraph, straight to the maximum tension. We're going to build it up slowly so that the reader is engaged and wants to keep reading. We need to have a really, sometimes you guys are so nice, you don't include a diabolical. You can look at that. Why don't you look that word up in the dictionary? Diabolical, that's an I there, by the way. A diabolical problem. Not just a little problem, like he dropped his ice cream on the ground and he was sad and he begged his mum for another one. That's not a big problem, but a really diabolical problem. Something that it looks like they're not going to make it out in time. He's going to fail the test. The volcano's going to erupt and cover them in rock and lava. The operation's not going to go well. He's going to fail, right? Something that seems really that it's never going to be resolved, but obviously it usually does get resolved. Now, the last bit is we need a little bit of speech. So the character's talking. And guys, don't overdo it. 5 to 10% is maximum, okay? Because if it's all speech, it's very hard for the reader to keep track of the events and it gets really out of hand. So a little bit of speech is okay, making sure you use punctuation correctly, starting with speech marks and ending with speech marks. A little bit is fine, but don't overdo it. Okay, so guys, hopefully you watch the video, you can pause and make sure that you've written that down. But this is what I would say is a recipe for a really, what do we call it? A really, let me get my coloured highlighter. Hang on a sec. Where are the colours? Anyway, a sensation. This is a recipe for a sensational story. Alrighty, let's go to, moving on. I'm going to show you what a story graph looks like. And I'm going to send this to your parents so they can print it out. Maybe you could put it above your desk, or maybe you could stick it in your notebook. But I'm going to send it to you right now after I've done this. But let's have a look on the screen. I'm going to go off the camera again, guys, as I share this. I'll show you what the story graph looks like. So, many of you have seen this before. It's not mine. I didn't come up with it, but I like it. This is from 7 Steps to Writing. Now, a story graph gives you a very visual plan and a way that you can approach your story. Now, let me just explain the parts to you. So, on this graph here, on this side, the line should go sort of up to the top here, right? And we can see that this matches over with the maximum height over here. So this is the maximum excitement of the story or interest of the story. So this is 10 out of 10. This is the where everything is about to go wrong. It's the climax of the story, right? And then in the middle, we've got 5 out of 10. And then down the bottom here, we've got 0 out of 10. So we've got no excitement down the bottom. So this is a graph, right? Now, this line here, can you guess what this is? This is time. So stories happen over time. This could be 1 hour. It could be 1 week. It could be 1 year. It could be 10 years. It just depends, right? Every story is different. So it's not about how long it goes for. It's just about understanding that stories happen over time. Now, as you can see, and we talked about this before, we don't want to begin, let's get another color. We don't want to begin up here, right? Because that's the maximum excitement, okay? We don't want to begin here. We want to begin with a little bit of excitement, guys. 5 out of 10, 4 out of 10, something like that. Now, you can see this box, it says sizzling start. So you have to decide which technique you're going to use. Are you going to use, like we talked about before, are you going to use dialogue? So dialogue is the character speaking. Maybe you're running late for school and your mum yells, "Quick, Max, get out of bed. You're going to miss the bus." Right? That could be how you start your story. You could begin with sound. Boom, crash, tick tock, tick tock. I get a little bit bored with sound, to be honest, because kids just say the same thing over and over. So you can use it though. Remember from the recipe we talked about description. So you could describe the character. You could say Mr. Smith down the road was a grumpy old man with a wrinkly face and a skinny body. Well, you could begin like that, right? And you could also describe the setting. You could also use, what was the other one? Action. So you might say, Sally raced down the stairs at 1,000 miles an hour, grabbed a piece of cold toast and stuffed it in her mouth as she burst out the front door, right? That's action. So what we don't want to do, guys, is one sunny day, right? Once upon a time. No, let's kill it, right? It's boring. Unless you're doing a nursery rhyme or your parent or your teacher tells you to. So we're going to begin with some excitement, something that's going to hook the reader at the beginning, right? And they want to keep reading. Then this section through here is what we call, so we're going to drop the tension off now, right? See, we're going to drop it down. And we call this part the backfill. Now, the backfill's kind of like the orientation in a way, which is answering questions like, who's in the story? Where are they? Why are they there? What are they doing? Maybe even how. Okay? This just orientates the reader to the story. Now, there may be 2 characters, there may be 3 characters. They may be in the bush, in the forest, in the classroom, in the science lab, at the airport. It could be anywhere, right? On a mountain. Why are they there? Were they on a picnic? Were they preparing for an exam? Were they on an excursion? You have to fill this in because the reader needs to know and understand these key points. Otherwise, they're lost from the beginning. So what is it? Basically, what is kind of all of those questions answered together? Sometimes how is appropriate too. Like if they're traveling, how are they traveling? By plane, by boat, by car? Are they hiking? Are they on horseback? How are they getting around? Okay. Now, we've done that. Now what we're going to do, kids, is we're going to gradually build the tension back up. Okay? And we do that by having a small problem, which we call a pebble. I'm going to show you my example in a minute. Then we have the rock, which is a little bit bigger problem, right? I'll show you my example in a minute. Then we're going to have even more tension. We're going to have a boulder, pebble-rock-boulder. And then we reach the ultimate, the 10 out of 10, the big problem, the climax, the complication. Maybe they're stuck. They're not going to get out in time. They're lost at sea. They're drifting away from the island. They're being circled by sharks. The building's burning. They're not going to make it out. They're going to fail the test. Whatever it is, this is where this happens. And it seems like all hope is lost. You know, you've been to the movies, kids, and it seems like the character's doomed, right? They're not going to make it out. They're not going to survive. They're not going to win. They're going to lose. They're going to be destroyed. They're going to be beaten. That's why you keep watching, okay? But then usually what we can add another word here. Usually there's some kind of resolution, and that ends in what we call a character wrap-up. So this can be a moral sometimes. This could be a lesson. This could be some sort of a change in the relationship. Maybe a mother and a daughter had been arguing over here. Maybe they've been arguing. Maybe the daughter wasn't happy because the mother wanted her to do extra homework and she was very upset, and they had a big argument and the mother was upset and they weren't talking. But back over here, when we come to the end, maybe their relationship is better, is healed. Maybe they've realized, the mother's realized that maybe it was a little bit too much homework. Or maybe the daughter realizes, my mum's right, I really do need to study hard because she only wants the best for me. So you really want to make a connection between the beginning here and the character wrap up, so the reader can feel that it all hangs together properly. Otherwise, it's kind of disjointed and it's all over the place. You know, when you watch a good movie, the ending wraps it up and you just end up going, oh, I see. That's the relationship between those characters. They were friends, or they've worked it out, and they're going to try harder in the future. So you're really tying it all together. Now, as I said, kids, this is a lifelong process, okay? It's baby steps. It's crawl before you can walk. It's not going to be, you're going to be sprinting down the street tomorrow. Like, you got to crawl, then you got to walk, then you got to jog, then you got to run, then you got to sprint, okay? It's time. It takes time. So, guys, this is what a story graph looks like. I'm going to send it out as well, but let me show you what, just before we finish up, here's one that I did, okay? And I call this story Volcano Escape, right? So, and you can see here, I've got these choices: onomatopoeia, I've got dialogue, action. I've decided to begin with dialogue. So in the dialogue box, I've just put in something that I might begin with. So the backdrop for mine is that this family, Max and Sally, are two members of the family. They're out camping, and it's a nice night, stars, but then suddenly Max says to Sally, did you hear that? They're out in their tent, they wake up, but they go back to sleep. So there was a noise and kind of like a shaking, like the ground was shaking. And Max was probably comforted Sally and said, oh, Sally, don't be a baby. It's nothing. We'll be fine. And they go back to sleep. Okay? But we've begun with a bit of action. Then down here, we're going to talk more about Max. I'm going to tell you about him. How old is he? Is he brave? What's the relationship between him and Sally? Are they brother and sister? Are they just classmates? Are they married? They might be a married couple. Who knows? All right? When? So maybe it's a full moon. Maybe it's a starry night. Maybe it's during the holidays. It's up to you. And where? Well, they're out exploring a sleeping volcano. They've heard about this amazing volcano. It's been sleeping for hundreds of years, so they're not worried about anything, right? And why are they there? They're just there to explore. Maybe they're scientists. Maybe their job is they're geologists, and maybe their job is to research volcanoes, sleeping volcanoes. And how are they doing it? Well, they're trekking, so they're camping and trekking. So when we come back down here, guys, we've got no tension. We've really got no tension. So the following day, we're going to build some tension. Look here. They set off, right? Suddenly they can feel the ground shakes. Did you feel that? Sally asks Max. Max goes, yeah, actually, I did feel that. And they wait. They pause. Maybe they have a drink. They're not worried. They're probably just a truck driving on one of the roads nearby, so they keep going. So we've got a little bit of tension. The reader feels, oh, something's going on here. Go up to a little bit more tension, right? So they stop at a swimming hole. Oh, this looks great. Let's go for a swim. They jump in. The water is actually bubbling and really hot. Jump out. Scared. What's going on? Why is the water so warm? Oh, maybe it's got something to do with the volcano. So they get out, they dry, maybe have some lunch. But, Max is really brave, and he doesn't want to look like a coward in front of Sally. So he says, "No, it'll be right, Sally. Let's keep going. This volcano's been asleep for hundreds of years. It's not going to erupt." On they go, closer to the volcano. Suddenly they see smoke pouring out the top. Lava sprays into the air. But after 10, 15 minutes, it kind of disappears. And so, yeah, you know what? Max is stubborn. He's a stubborn character, right? You could say Max is stubborn. He never does what anyone else says. He always does what he wants to do. But he's also brave. So they push on. Maybe they've got all their equipment out and they're taking some readings and measurements, right? They get closer. They're right at the bottom of the volcano. They're standing down here, right? Here's the volcano. And there's a huge explosion. Sprays of lava and molten lava burst out the top. Rocks are falling all around them. There's a wall of lava heading down the mountain right for them. Right? They turn. They run for their lives. The wall of lava is just flattening all the trees. Birds are flying away. Animals are screaming and crying. Everything's being destroyed, and they're sprinting like leopards to get out of there. It seems like they're going to be doomed. They're just going to get squashed and just going to be buried under all this molten lava. That's the end of our two characters. But fortunately, a friend from school heard the noise as well. Her name's Annie, and she saves the day. And she flies over the top in her helicopter. Here's her helicopter, right? She comes over the top, and she's flying in her helicopter. And she drops down a line. And they jump onto the line just in time before the wall of lava flattens them and they disappear into the earth. They're saved just by the nick of their skin. They just make it out alive, and they climb up the rope into the ladder and fly off into the sunset without a second to spare. One more second later and they would have been barbecued. Okay, so here you can see I've got a whole story here, and I can build this and I can write this out in paragraphs. And finally, maybe, what have they learnt from this? Maybe Max has figured out that being brave is great, but don't be foolish. When the signs are there, he should have listened to them, because he put Sally's life at risk as well. So maybe he needs to apologize to Sally. And maybe Sally says, "It's okay, I know you're brave, but next time, let's be more careful." Guys, can you see my story here? I think you can, right? I can see it. I'm looking at it right now. And all I need to do now is write it out. But reality is, guys, in a test situation, you're not going to have the luxury of, we just had 20 minutes doing this, right? You're going to have to think quickly. How do I put this together? Bang, bang, bang. So I'm going to send you this story graph, and I ask your parents maybe to copy it 10 times, 10 copies of it. And every time you've got to do a story for school or for Mr. Tim's homework, think about it like this and plan it out. And I'm also going to attach a link to a couple of videos that I did. One is on shampoo, one is on show not tell, and another one is on creative writing. So I'll just send you the link to my YouTube channel. Check it with your parents. If they say it's okay, you can watch it. It should be fine if they are happy. But I hope that helps, guys. I know it's bewildering, and the stories are supposed to be fun, supposed to be enjoyable, and the great thing is there's no wrong answer, okay? But you've got to tie it all together. It's got to kind of make sense, and you don't want to kind of lose the reader by going off in all these different directions, okay? You've got to just keep it simple, keep it clean. Don't try to add too much detail. Follow the story graph, and then it's like a skeleton, and over time you're going to put the muscle on. You're going to put the meat on the skeleton. It's going to get richer and deeper, but you've got to start from the beginning. All right, guys, I hope that helps. See you guys soon. Bye.